Have you ever really thought about how you talk about time? I mean, when you say, I went to the store instead of I go to the store, that tiny change feels so automatic, doesn't it? Well, what if I told you that it's not just some random quirk of English? What if it's a clue to a hidden, universal structure deep inside the human mind?
So, let's get into this. The philosopher W.V. Coyne pointed out something really cool. Our language is kind of obsessed with time. He called it a tiresome bias. Because, think about it, the rules of grammar force us to constantly say when something is happening. You can't just say, it rained. Nope, you have to say, it is raining or it rained. Your language makes you put that simple fact on a timeline, even if you don't really care when it happened. That's the nagging, tiresome bias he was talking about.
So here's a wild thought. What if your grammar is basically a time machine you've been using your whole life without even knowing it? Every single time you speak, with just the flick of a verb, you can send your listener back into the past, keep them right here in the present, or shoot them off into the future. It's this incredible device we use all day, every day, without ever stopping to look at the instruction manual. So how in the world does this time machine actually work? Well, it's not about fancy dials or flashing lights. The engine of this machine is built right into the rules of grammar itself. Specifically, it's about the information your language forces you to give every single time you open your mouth.
Just look at this. The difference between walk and walked? It's just one tiny little sound at the end of the word. But that one change completely flips the entire event in time. One is happening right now, the other is a memory. And get this, in English, it's not an optional detail. You have to make that choice.
Linguists actually have a name for these forced choices. They call them accidents categories. You can think of them like the mandatory fields on a form. English makes you fill in the time box, but other languages might force you to specify gender, or maybe the social status between you and the person you're talking to. The key thing here is, these aren't just details. They are things you absolutely must specify just to make a proper sentence.
Okay, so if every language has its own mandatory rules for time, you can imagine it would just be total chaos, right? Like thousands of different clocks, all ticking in their own unique way. And honestly, for a long time, that's pretty much what it looked like to linguists, a whole lot of chaos. Now, to make sense of this chaos, we've got to separate two key ideas. First up is tense. This is the one we all know pretty well. It's basically a GPS pin for time, locating an event in the past, present, or future, all relative to right now, the moment you're speaking. Simple enough. The second idea is aspect, and this one's a little more subtle. See, aspect doesn't really care when an event happens, but how it happens. Is it a single, done and dusted action like I wrote a letter? Or is it a process that was ongoing, like I was writing a letter? It's the same event, but aspect gives you a completely different camera angle on it.
And this is where the chaos gets really interesting. So many languages don't just stop at a simple past, present, and future. Oh no, their grammar forces you to be way more specific. You might have to say if something happened today, that's called the hodiernal past. Or if it happened yesterday, the hesternal past. Some even have a remote past for things that happened a long time ago. You can see how this all starts to look incredibly complex.
So, staring into this beautiful, complicated mess, a linguist named Östen Dahl set out on a quest. He wanted to know if there was some kind of hidden order, a universal blueprint, underneath all these wildly different ways of talking about time.
And this was no small quest. He wasn't just looking at a couple of languages. We're talking about a deep dive into 64 of them. 64. From all over the world. Georgian, Guarani, Finnish, you name it. It was a truly massive undertaking. So how did he do it? His method was really smart. First, he created this incredibly detailed questionnaire with sentences describing very specific situations. Then, he got native speakers from all 64 of those languages to translate them. By seeing how all these different languages handled the exact same scenario, he could start to map out the underlying systems and hunt for patterns in that ocean of data. And what he found, well, it was a genuine breakthrough. He discovered that the secret to unlocking the universal grammar of time wasn't about finding identical rules. It was about something called prototypes. To get what a prototype is, let me ask you a simple question. When exactly does a person become bald? I mean, is it when they lose their 10,000th hair? Their 20,000th? What's the magic number?
The truth is, there's no exact line, is there? And most of the concepts we use every day are just like that. They don't have these rigid, sharp boundaries. Instead, they have a really clear, undeniable center, and then these blurry, fuzzy edges. We all know what a very bald person looks like, and we know what a person with a full head of hair looks like. The confusion is all in the middle.
This brings us to this idea of a prototype. A prototype is just the best example of a category. So for bird, a sparrow is a fantastic prototype. It's small, it flies, it chirps. It's like the most birdie bird you can imagine. Now, a penguin is still a bird, of course, but it's way out on the fuzzy edges of the category. It's just not as typical.
And this right here is the heart of Dahl's big discovery. He realized that the universal blueprint wasn't some strict set of rules that every single language has to follow. Instead, what he found was that while languages don't share the exact same definitions for their time categories, all their different categories cluster around the same universal prototypes. So a completed action might have slightly different fuzzy edges in Russian than it does in Spanish, but they both share the exact same conceptual center, the same prototype.
Okay, so what does this all mean for us? Every time we open our mouths to speak, what is this hidden structure actually doing?
The linguist Roman Jakobson just nailed it with this quote. He said the real difference between languages isn't about what they can say, because let's be real, you can express almost any idea in any language if you try hard enough. The real difference is in what each language must say, what those mandatory grammatical categories force you to pay attention to.
And at the end of the day, that's the big takeaway. This research peels back the surface of all our different grammars to show us this hidden universal structure in human thought. It shows that even though our languages sound so different, when it comes to organizing reality and time, we are all working from the same shared set of mental blueprints. So, the next time you speak, just remember that invisible blueprint you're using. Your grammar is like a lens, and it's forcing you to focus on time. But that leaves us with one last pretty big question. What else does that lens force you to see? And maybe more importantly, what parts of reality does it, by its very nature, allow you to completely ignore?